Well, we talked about the YouTube community, which was a big part of your life, which is your main life, but you also had another life. And a lot of people might not know about this. We actually talked about this earlier. Was you were actually a independent pro wrestler? You wrestled in Canada in wrestling promotions like Gold Dragon Wrestling and other places. So my question is, I always known you were a fan, but what made you kind of decide in your head to go, you know what, I like to try wrestling? And do you remember your first opponent and when your first official wrestling match debut and how you came up with Mitch Lightning? Like, how'd you come up with everything involving your debut and wanted to actually put in the work to actually try to actually legit become something that you were always a fan of?
So I became a fan, and I met Jan when I was. Jan is goes by the name of JS McStrongarm, and I became a big fan of just the whole thing of wrestling, and I found out that Gold Dragon Wrestling was a thing. So I wanted to be a part of it. Jan came to get gas at the co-op. I told him I am interested in wrestling. He gave me his business card. I gave him a call up, and now Jan is one of my closest friends. I love the guy to bits. He's just such a solid stand-up guy, and I think when it comes down to it, I started training. I started November 1st of 2000, 2011. 2012, I had my first ever match, and the very exciting thing about it was the very exciting thing about it was on March 31st, 2012. That's when it was. It was JS McStrongarm. We were wrestling at the PPW Pure Power Wrestling Anniversary Extravaganza. It was in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. And JS McStrongarm defeated Mitch Lightning in his first ever match. And I remember just how exciting that match was. And then just kind of moving on throughout the ranks. I was able to have my second match, and it was also it was called PPW Armageddon, so it was in Lethbridge again. My second match ever in Lethbridge, and I was wrestling Vance Nevada, and Vance Nevada defeated Mitch Lightning, and that was my first match to get a feel for Vance Nevada, and then I ended up having my debut in Moose Jaw, my hometown, where it was a proud moment where I could just kind of look over and see Jared in the crowd and see my dad and my mom and see my grandma. She was able to come and see me, my whole family. The crowd went nuts. It was my first match. It was actually quite emotional because, like, even though it's an independent show, I was like, I know Miz ended up saying that he saw his friends at WrestleMania and he was holding the championship, and he says, we did it. Well, I know I wasn't going to be a WWE superstar, but all I knew was I was able to look at Jared sitting there, and it was kind of him looking and going, you did it. You were able to do something that that I wanted to do, but I really never had the guts to do. And Jared always says that. He goes, he wishes that he would have done it, but he goes, I don't know how well he would have done. But I ended up going against Vance Nevada, and I ended up defeating him in my hometown, him pulling a rib on me. And I thought that was hilarious because I thought I was supposed to lose. And he ended up playing a major prank on me. Overall, wrestling was big. It was big for me. I think one of my favorite matches, and it's one of Jared's favorite matches too, was when I ended up going against Ace Riviera. And it was
Yeah.
on September 9th, 2012. It was at the Timothy Eaton Gardens in Moose Jaw. And Ace and I, or Garth, his real name, we ended up just having a barn burner match. It was great. We, like, again, sold out the place. I was very privileged. On that show, we had Scrap Iron Adam Pearce, which was the current and reigning NWA World Champion. So I was able to say that Scrap Iron Adam Pearce, an agent of the WWE currently, sat there and the champion of the National Wrestling Alliance watched my match and was able to give me pointers. That is huge. And that was one of my favorite matches, was with Ace. We clicked that night, and we put on a show for everybody, and I couldn't have been happier. And Scrap Iron Adam Pierce, he showed a lot of admiration. He realized that I was green as grass, and he was like, even for that, you still did a really good job. So I'm very proud of that match that I was able to have, and obviously move on afterwards. And I was able to go against Frankie Kazarian, which is a former AEW Impact Wrestling Tag Team Champion. Like, that was a huge thing for wrestling. I may have not have been the best wrestler. I may have not have made it to WWE or anything like that, or made it as a career. But I can say that I was able to do some cool things. Share locker rooms with Jake the Snake Roberts and Colt Cabana and Harry Smith and Scrap Iron Adam Pierce, and was able to actually be a part of a locker room and to learn and to meet different people and see the good sides of wrestling and the bad sides. And at the very end of the day, I'm very appreciative of that, and I was glad that I was able to take that path of wrestling.
Yeah. So like you said, you start off wrestling, JS McStrong advanced Nevada, and you talked about how you kind of advanced, which honestly the biggest match of your career thus far was against Frankie Kazarian, which was a big deal. When you told me that and I heard about that, I was like, "Oh shit, dude, this is huge for you. You're not just fighting just anybody. You're fighting somebody that was on TV and is actually still on TV to this day. In fact, he and Daniels just had a recent tag team title loss against the Young Bucks on Dynamite. So to say that you wrestled that guy, and you said yourself, you got to meet Colt Cabana, which again, he's on AEW. You got to meet Scrap Iron and Pierce, again, who's part of WWE now. He's getting more TV time. I think you met Angelina Love one time. You've met a lot of people. The Jake Snake.
Do you know what's hilarious? I'll tell you something really hilarious. And it's a thing that I will always say, and it annoys the crap out of Jared. I'll look at him and I'll go, like, Frankie Kazarian will come out and I go, Jared, I wrestled him. He's like, yes, Mitch, I know you wrestled him. But I just do it to get under his skin, right? I'm like, I wrestled Frankie Kazarian. I said, Jared, this isn't going to make sense to you, but I said, you're just going to go with it. It's like, okay, what is it? I said, well, Frankie Kazarian wrestled Chris Jericho. He's like, yeah. I said, well, Mitch Lightning wrestled Frankie Kazarian. So I was able to tie up with Frankie Kazarian, which means Chris Jericho tied up with Frankie Kazarian. So technically, when it comes down to it, I wrestled Chris Jericho. And I said, technically, if you want to think about it too, I've also wrestled Kurt Angle and Sting and Christian because Frankie Kazarian wrestled them. And since they locked up with him and took a springboard leg drop, that means I've wrestled them. And Jared's like, no, you didn't. I was like, no, Jared. I wrestled Kurt Angle and AJ Styles too. Like, anybody Frankie Kazarian has wrestled, I've wrestled because he's tied up with me. So that means my DNA is with Frankie Kazarian always. And Jared's just like, shut up.
Little stuff like that is hilarious. Like, you told me, I don't remember if it was a house show. I think you told me it was a house show. You've been in a few wrestling house shows, and I think one was like John Cena versus somebody, and Jared just screamed like, "Cena, take your shirt off," and stuff like that, and you just lost it. You always take little jabs. You guys like to kind of rib on each other quite a bit. All jokes aside, I mean, the fact that you got to meet Jake Roberts, Kazarian, Colt Cabana, you got to wrestle, which is great. But with that being said, unfortunately, your wrestling career did come short for a brief period there. Something happened at a recent wrestling show about a few years ago, which kind of took you, some time off. And of course, after that moment, you did wrestle a couple times, but after that, you seemed to be kind of retired as of right now as a wrestler. But what happened during that first time, or that first time you actually quit or retired? Because that was a serious moment you talked about where you actually got injured. Can you kind of tell me exactly like what happened and what was the process and what kind of led you your first retirement?
I wouldn't even say I retired. I don't think I'm good enough to say that I've retired. What I'll say is I had a scary moment in wrestling. I stepped into the ring with another wrestler. He set me up for a pile driver. It was a sit down kind of Rikishi driver. He never really protected me enough, and I went head first and spiked my head. Um, in wrestling, you would call that a stinger, but it scared the living crap out of me because I, for a good 10 seconds, lost all feeling in my arms and my feet. Uh, and that was scary because I couldn't move anything. And I was severely concussed. And it's scary to know that I pulled myself out. I should have actually been stretchered out, and I chose to pull myself out and tough it out. And I toughed it out and actually went to WrestleMania 31, and I was in the theater, and I did not feel good. I was in bad shape. I couldn't shoulder check while driving, and I sat there in just pain. And I remember looking over and saying, "Take me to the hospital." And they put me in a neck brace, and they did some scans and some X-rays. Said no broken neck, but I severely I had a stinger, more than likely, and I was able to heal. But still to this day, I still have neck problems. Even though I never broke my neck, I still have neck problems. I still suffer from it. It's kind of scary, and I just got to make sure that I'm keeping up on my neck strength. If that's doing bridges, or if that is doing headstands or something, or even just stretching my neck out. And if I don't do that, then I suffer, and that's just what it is. I don't envy the ones that have actually broken their necks, like Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, many others that have actually had severe broken necks. Um, I know Brock Lesnar never broke his neck, but pretty darn near close, right?
Yeah.
So it's I think when it comes down to it, it was a scary thing, and I really had to have that meeting with myself of do I want to do this for the rest of my life, or do I want to pick another career? So I chose to pick another career, and not make wrestling a job. I wasn't living off of wrestling. I like that wasn't my career. I was doing that on the side of working, right? So I really needed to have that. I need to have something back up, right? And I did, and I was able to successfully graduate this year by doing it, and truly happy with that. I made the right decision. Wrestling is still something I love, but it's not the only thing that defines me. I have many things in my life that define me now. So I'm truly blessed and determined through that.
Um, yeah, no, and you know that's pretty good. Like I wasn't too sure exactly what happened with your match, but you've talked to me about that, how it's a very controversial, very we won't go to full details, but you know what I'm talking about in terms of the person you worked with and the issues possibly with them, and you suffered your stinger. Um, I did not know that you went to the theater to see WrestleMania 31 and you were in pain because that was the very first WrestleMania I attended live. So knowing that I went to WrestleMania 31 live and have pretty much fun, you were in a theater and you were in pain to the point where you needed a neck brace, and now to this day you're talking about now you need to straighten out your neck. I mean that's awful, but you said yourself that you know you wrestling is not the only thing that defines you. Like you said, like we talked briefly, you were once a dancer, and you just talked about how you graduated college just recently, which is again big congratulations. But one more thing about the wrestling thing before we move on, there was one match against one guy, a certain Texan. You know what I'm talking about. One of my favorite matches, and you defended your custom made Wrestling Gurus Championship against a man by the name of Aaron Frost in a 2 out of 3 falls match, if I'm not mistaken. And you said he was very stiff on you, but it was a fun guy to work with. What did it feel like for you in that match? Do you consider that one of your favorite matches that you were a part of? And how did it feel knowing that you got to defend your own custom made championship that you used for feuds with Jared and Justice and Dallas and all of them, knowing that your title belt that you created just for yourself and for the channel, now you got to treat as a real championship, defending against someone who is pretty much a stiff worker in such a very strong style brawling type of a match, like a 2 out of 3 falls match with someone like Aaron Frost, who some people may not know who he is, which is fine. I don't expect you to, but Aaron Frost was a very stiff worker. How did you feel knowing that title that you created was being defended on that night, and were you overall happy on that match, even though you kind of took a shit kicking?
Well, I wouldn't say it's my favorite match. Like I'll still say, I think my favorite match where we clicked was me and Ace Riviera.
Yeah.
But I would say a very close top 5 favorite matches that I had was with Aaron Frost, just because, yeah, I was able to use a championship that was just a joke on a channel, on a wrestling channel, and I was able to defend it in a ring. I remember Jared just thinking, like, this is the coolest thing ever. Like, you're defending a championship over YouTube that we used on YouTube. So we thought that was a pretty cool thing to do. And my first ever match, it was a 2 out of 3 falls match. It was between myself and Country Boy Aaron Frost. And really, really enjoyed that match. It was... I remember Aaron Frost got excited because the match prior to that, he ended up throwing a clothesline on me, and I ended up selling the crap out of it. Like even Harry Smith, Davey Boy Smith Jr., he was like in the locker room and he saw me take this clothesline. He thought I broke my neck, but I just landed high on the top of my shoulders. I made Frost's clothesline look like he killed me. And I remember Harry going, "You good?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm fine." He goes, "Wow." He goes, "You took that hard." And I remember by after taking that, Frost kind of was like, "Oh, I really can do a good clothesline," because that's Frost for you. And anyway, he believed in his own clothesline, so he decided to really lay in this clothesline. Instead of letting me do the work and sell it, he decided to aim. But when he aimed, you're supposed to hit him like on the chest for a clothesline. Well, he missed my chest and hit me right in the neck, which was awful. It sucks so bad. He got me right in the neck, and I just remember going, that was stiff. And then on top of that, he got the first fall. And then the second fall, we said, well, we don't want him to get a fall, I get a fall, and then I get a fall. So we need to figure out how I'm going to get a fall in this. And that's when we had him hit me with a steel chair. And let's just be honest, he had to be stiff. Aaron Frost had to be stiff with that chair. I said, we need the fans to look at that and go, holy crap, Mitch Lightning just got the crap kicked out of him with this chair. So he hit me hard with that chair. And I don't fault him for that. And then he powerbombed me like 4 times, which was just awful the next day of feeling that. And then I was pretty displeased with how stiff he was, so I decided to return the favor, and I choked him out in the middle of the ring. And he went to sleep. Originally, he was supposed to tap out, and I put him in the choke for real, and I choked him out. As a receipt, as we would call it in the business. Yeah. And he went night-night and came to wits in the locker room. So welcome to Pro Wrestling 911. But no, in all honesty, I enjoyed defending my title and saying that I defended in the professional wrestling ring. It was quite enjoyable.